Help, I'm a Parent is owned by Dr. Naomi Rutten, Mental Health GP. It has been developed with the support of the town of Gawler. Help, I'm a Parent includes examples, images and references for information purposes only and are not associated to the town of Gawler in any way or form. All information provided and discussed is general advice and should not be considered specific to your own situation. Professional support should be sought if this session raises concerns for you. Helpline details are below in the YouTube content.
Hi, and welcome to Help, I'm a Parent. I'm Dr. Naomi Rutten, a mental health general practitioner.
And I'm Ebony. I am a mum of two and I work with Gawler Youth.
So Ebony is my very willing parent who's going to be working with us today and has been in other videos as well. So today we're going to be, this is episode 6, I think.
Somewhere around there.
It's probably one of the ones that was meant to be. So today we're talking about giving and receiving of messages.
Okay.
So the first thing to sort of stop and think about, and I know it's been a while since we released a video, due to technology,
School holidays,
and life, and COVID, is really just to remember what is the purpose of the brain.
Yeah.
You know, we have a brain. Everybody has a brain, although sometimes it feels like some people don't have brains, especially certain people in Victoria at the moment. And the brain works at controlling all the systems in the body. All right, but its actual purpose is a bit different. So its purpose is to be able to communicate to other human beings.
Okay.
And then to understand what that other human being is communicating back.
Yeah.
Without communication and connection, our brain does not function properly.
Yeah.
We've previously talked in the other videos about how children's brains will only grow and develop if it can make connections with other human brains. Yeah. So without the ability to make connections, the brain won't grow and develop. Without connection, the brain won't function properly, and the human being will eventually die as a result. Yeah. And for children growing and developing, their development will be impaired in some degree or have some sort of complication that's involved. Yeah. All right. So one of the exercises that we're going to talk about today, to sort of give an example, is about the importance of communication. So part of communication is me giving you information, which would then require for you to listen, which is an art form in itself. So one of the things that I'm going to put up, and it's from the Australian Childhood Foundation, Bringing Up Great Kids, is this symbol that they use, the Chinese symbol for listen. Yeah. So the Chinese symbol for listen has ear for hearing, the eyes for looking, the heart for sort of being present, and the one and the king to sort of, that it makes that person feel like they're the centre of the attention.
It's really nice, actually.
I know, I do love that.
So
I'm going to laminate it and put it up.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is I'm going to ask Ebony to talk for 1 minute about if she could be anywhere right now in the world, where would she like to be?
I could easily do it where I would not like to be. Okay, cool.
And go.
Right, so if the world was normal, where I would like to be, I'm just going to disclaim that because at the moment in the world I'm like, I think I'm pretty safe where I am. I think if I were to be anywhere right at the second, I would love to be back in Uganda gorilla trekking and up in the rainforests and seeing these amazing animals and working with the beautiful people that I was working with over there and supporting those communities. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I would like to be. Otherwise, if it had to be a second, it would just be somewhere that's actually nice and warm at the moment. You know, a nice beach somewhere, or I don't know, some nice warm hot springs in New Zealand or something like that. That actually sounds pretty good. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'll book you a ticket too. Then we can do that. Yeah.
All right. So, as we can see, I sort of broke the rules because I did speak at the end. So my job was to just listen. So what is it you noticed that I was doing that might have helped you to feel like I was listening to you?
So you were facing, to me. You were open, so you weren't closed off or whatever. You're open. Yeah, that's right. And you're nodding, and I guess eye connection and that kind of thing.
Good. Yeah. All right. So when we're parenting with our kids, we need to keep in mind all of those sorts of things. All right, because those things matter. If we're screaming at our children from another room, which
I was literally just thinking,
never do.
Yeah. Other end of the house. Hurry up and get to the door.
How much of that communication is actually heard and taken on board, as well as what is the message that is actually getting through to that child.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's really, really, really important to understand, and again, I'll put this up because it's a chart from the parenting program, is the communication pie. So what actually makes up communication?
Okay.
All right. 38% of communication, all right, is from our voice qualities.
Yes. Tone and stuff. Yeah.
Whether we're talking
Absolutely.
like this. If I sit here and I say, so Ebony, how have you been today?
Yeah.
It's going to affect a response in you. All right, so tone of voice is absolutely important. It's 38% of what we do. Body language is 55%. So if our children can't see us and they can't see our body language, then essentially the majority is going to be our tone of voice.
Yeah, totally.
So if we're in a separate room going, for goodness sake, come already, their brain is going to go, wow, mum's really angry. Even though we might be standing there.
Yes,
and
she
sort
is.
Of, but they're missing a whole bunch of other communication, which might be, I want to give you a hug. I know I'm frustrated, but I still love you.
Yeah.
The other side is 7% in words. So we've got 55% is body language, 38% is your voice quality, and 7% of the words.
That's interesting. Okay, right.
So, and it's interesting because the thing is, when I remember, things people have said to me, they stick. But when I think of the proportion of the words that people say to me and how many words I actually remember, it is probably a really, really small amount.
But is it also that you remember the words because of the tone they said it in?
Yeah.
And
that's just it. So when we're interacting with our children and trying to get any sort of messages or communication with them, we must consider our tone quality. And I admit I was trying to explain this to my husband recently, who was trying to teach our kids while we were building a chicken coop to, that suddenly go, no, he's like, I was trying to be really supportive and stuff. And I'm like, okay. So, these things matter. Yeah. And so we, as the adult who's meant to have it all, have their stuff all sorted together, need to be aware of this and how it'll impact on a kid. Now, as in all other videos, I'm going to remind everybody that nobody is going to get this right 100% of the time because we're human beings and we don't always have it together.
Yeah, totally.
So it's more about getting an understanding and keeping it in mind of if our child reacts in a certain way, why might they have done that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, keeping that in mind for all relationships, but particularly children learn through their watching, right? Yep. So if we're not keeping that in account for how we interact with and communicate with adults or our partner or whoever, and then they're seeing how we speak and they're mirroring that in it's that kind of together. So it's really important to have that as an overlay to
all of us will have had it with our own kids, but also seen it in other places where we hear children repeating back in the same tone, in the same way, that their parents have. And parents are, I don't sound like that. And it's like, the reality is to that child, that's exactly what they see and hear. So, and it can be quite confronting to hear your child and go, oh my goodness, so that's what I sound like. Okay, but again, it's about learning. It's about learning and go, okay, well, that's not how I want them to behave. So what can I do to do better? Which is why we're doing these videos and why we're watching these videos. Okay, so one of the things we need to always consider is we're providing messages to our children, and they're going to be providing messages to us. So in regard to our communication with our kids, we've just discussed we need to be mindful of our posture, our where we are, how close we are to them, our tone of voice, and the words that we use, because all of those things will interact. But we also need to be able and have ourselves in a position as parents to read the messages that our children are providing to us. What's their body language telling us? What's their facial expression telling us? What's their tone of voice telling us? What's their words telling us? And remembering that, most kids under 2 will have very limited words. So most of the expression and stuff is through body language. And the reality is, as soon as kids start talking, as parents, we tend to go, well, use your words. Completely forgetting that, remember, 7%, only 7% is words. So we need to remember to check in with our kids and actually acknowledge, well, what is their body language telling me? What is their tone of voice telling me? And actively listening.
And they're not reacting. So if that's negative or, perceived negative, or we're seeing that the tone's wrong or whatever, we can't expect to, if we have a reaction, we can't, and then when, you reverse that, and if they're listening to us and they have a reaction, like, we can't, you've got to have the same.
So the biggest thing is about us as parents actively listening to our children. Now, as parents, we're generally really, really busy. And so it's easy to stop listening to our children. To just be like, just listen to what I'm doing and do what I say. Get on with it. I'm busy, let's just do it. As opposed to stopping and listening to anything that they have to feed back. Because communication is about a two-way thing. As apart from, a Trump dictatorship. Of you will do what I say. Because I'll make it up as I go.
Literally.
All right. So, and that's really where it leads into, I know that the parenting program talks about and really encourages people to look at the UN rights of the child. Okay. So one of the things in that is sort of whether our voices are big or small, whether we whisper, shout or sign it, listen to us and hear what we say. Because at the end of the day, and on the rights, it specifically sort of says, that all adults should do what is best for you as a child. When adults make decisions, they should think about how their decisions will affect their children. And children have the right to give their opinions, which means that they need to be heard and we need to listen to them. But again, that means that as adults and as parents, we need to be in the right state of mind to listen. So that leads us into our next section in this, about what are the barriers that stop us from being able to listen to ourselves, but also to other people. What are the barriers?
Or that we've been shut down a million times before.
So what are the barriers that that parents will experience or be experiencing that stop us from communicating well with our children?
What are the barriers? The barriers, I think, would be like if you're constantly in a heightened state and you're just reacting versus actually being able to really listen. Would it be like your messaging and stuff as well that you've received yourself in the past?
So absolutely, the messages that you've received and the beliefs that you've, number one, how that child is making you feel. So your own feelings might create a barrier. like you said, if you're feeling heightened.
Yeah.
And we've previously discussed all the sorts of things that make us feel heightened.
Yeah.
Sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Being hungry.
Yeah.
So for us as adults, you know, and I'll constantly refer to this, you know, our Maslow's chart as an adult, did we get lunch?
Yeah.
Are we hungry?
We're
and therefore
hungry.
more irritable?
Yeah.
You know, are we getting decent sleep?
Yeah.
Has anybody with with children had a good night's sleep anytime recently?
Yeah.
You know, are we feeling...
So at the real basic level, instantly our defences are a bit further down when you've got young children particularly,
You know, how's our work going if we're working at home? If
money
we're...
issues or...
all those sorts of things. How safe and secure are we feeling within our own environment? Yeah. Because again, those things all add to stress.
Absolutely.
Are we feeling loved and belonging and having purpose and place? Do we feel well in ourselves? Because if we don't have those things, we are going to be more stressed. And if we're more stressed, our brain has less capacity to be able to communicate with another human being. Which means we're not listening to our children as much. Which means there's breakdown of the relationship and people find ways to calm down. And often they're not healthy ways. Such as excessive amounts of alcohol or Tim Tams or chocolate and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, Eb, can you remember a time where you and one of your children, there's been a misunderstanding in communication?
Like how many
example.
Multiple times in a day would you like to go over that? What's a good one? I've got to think of a good example. I don't know if that's really good. I don't know if this is a good example. We'll redo it if it's a bad one. But I guess, you know, there's that challenge of, can we do that tomorrow? Well, not tomorrow, we'll do it on the weekend because we're not at the weekend yet. And that kind of, you know, misunderstanding of, you know, time and that kind of thing. That's a terrible example. We need to do a different one, sorry.
Because there's frequent misunderstandings where there's miscommunication or the communication was misread or misinterpreted.
Okay. We might re-click that and then we might come back to this bit. So I think some times where there's been miscommunication is where I have got off the phone after maybe having a little bit of a heightened conversation about maybe quite a serious adult thing, you know, that really shouldn't impact the kids as such, but because I'm already heightened in that state and then I'm giving directions straight after that we're going to go off and do this now, can you please get to the bathroom because we need to have bath time now, but my tone certainly would be, you know, very heightened, and you know, then there's reaction probably from one or both my children because they think I'm angry at them, when in actual fact it's got nothing to do with them. It's more so to do with, you know, my dealing and having that moment to just process what conversation I've just had. When
you think back to that occasion, what was your body language like, do you think?
Oh, it was probably pretty tense. Just like, come on, let's go. Like it would be very much like that.
That's just it. You know, and we forget that our tension, whether they mean to, you know, our kids and other people will be able to read our body and the information that's providing to them.
And mum's angry at me. It's got absolutely nothing to do with that. Yeah.
So, you know, in those situations, we do just need to, you know, stop and think, okay, well, how did I as the parent feel? Yeah. And how did the child feel? And getting an understanding, because we need to understand where the miscommunication has been before we can actually start looking at repairing things. And fixing the issue. So it's just about stopping and going, okay, well, actually, why is my child reacting the way they are? There's been a miscommunication. So understanding about that communication and why that might have happened. So in that regard, we need to always remember as parents that it is absolutely essential and important that we be as well regulated as we can.
Of course, yeah.
Our children's brains that are growing and developing don't have the capacity to be well regulated because they're children. You know, depending on their age, it depends on what their developmental ability is to regulate their emotions.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for all children, they're going to need us as adults to be a regulated brain for them if they are dysregulated.
Yeah.
Which means we have to learn how to be regulated. So in that regard, I would like to do some breathing exercises.
Okay.
One which I found was really, really good. There was one where what we do is we take a big deep breath as far and fill our lungs, and then we hold it, and then we take a big quick breath and then let out. And I just really like this one, and I've started doing it more frequently.
Okay.
And if you repeat that 3 or 5 times, not too quickly, because otherwise you'll hyperventilate and collapse, which may mean that you'll actually get a good night's sleep. So breathing,
maybe do it.
I wouldn't medically encourage anybody to do it. Is breathing in, quick breath, and then release. And you can kind of feel
everything come out.
Yes, all of that tension coming out.
Okay.
Another one is sort of the slower breaths where you're taking 4 in, hold for 4, breathing out for 4. So it's that more smooth, regulated breathing in and out. Another one is that I frequently use with my clients is where you slowly breathe in for 4, 3, 4, and you hold for 2, 1, 2, and then you slowly breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So shorter on the in, hold. When you hold, what happens is your brain goes, oh my goodness, we're going to run out of oxygen, starts getting a bit stressed, but then we slowly breathe out, which shifts our diaphragm up, which tells our brain that everything's okay, and stimulates the nerves that slow things down, go, actually everything's okay.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So that's another really, really good one as well. So it's really about picking whatever one works for you and practicing it. And again, these are, if we're learning something, you're building a new pathway, and it just means that you're going to have to practice it, because if we don't practice things, the pathway won't get stronger.
Yeah.
So, cool. That's communication and messages. Our next one will be about behaviour messages and the messages that kids send us, which is my favourite one. So thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Ebony, for volunteering your time. And we will all see you soon. Bye.